Hello there. Welcome to the Data Radio Show Holiday Specials. Well, I say specials, they're not really super special. I mean, everything we do is kind of special. You know what? I'm just rambling. Here's what's going on. Over the holiday period, we're going to be releasing content every day that's been created by Notebook LM, which is a tool that Google has that basically takes a whole bunch of information and finds a way to disseminate it in a really simple way for people to understand and then present it as a podcast. So we're giving it a bit of a test based on our Data Pro newsletter, which is completely free to sign up to. You can do that. It's in the description down below if you haven't done so already. So we've taken our newsletters from throughout the year and we've created these podcast episodes using Notebook LM. It's a really fascinating experience to see how they differentiate the information that's in there. So have a listen, see what you think of it, and don't forget to subscribe, share, tell everybody about what's going on, but also make sure that you spend some time to yourself these holidays and enjoy the season. We'll be back soon with some fantastic new episodes, but until then, check out this one.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely. Always up for exploring new data territory.
Well, today we're tackling data fabric.
Oh, yes. A hot topic.
It really is, especially with LLMs exploding and everyone needing more flexible data management. We're using this Data Fabric Risks and Rewards article from datapro.news as our guide.
Sounds like a good one. I've skimmed it. Definitely raises some important points.
Like the fact that data fabric is already being used in finance? Did you know that?
I did, actually. It's being used to improve fraud detection, even things like powering algorithmic trading.
Yeah, mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah.
But before we go too far, maybe we should step back for a second. For anyone who's not familiar, what are the problems that data fabric is supposed to be solving?
Well, a lot of it stems from the shortcomings of traditional data management.
Right, like those pesky data silos.
Exactly. You've got data scattered across all these different systems.
Makes it a nightmare to access and analyze, right? It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
More like trying to find a needle in a haystack that's spread across multiple barns. It leads to inaccurate insights and potentially some risky decision-making.
Not to mention the security risks when your data is all over the place like that.
Yeah, definitely a recipe for disaster.
So, data fabric. This is supposed to be the superhero that comes in and saves the day.
Well, it aims to. The article makes some pretty bold claims. Essentially, Data Fabric creates a unified framework for managing all that data.
So instead of isolated pockets of data,
You have a single integrated view, like weaving a digital tapestry.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, the article specifically mentions financial institutions using data fabric.
Yeah, they're using it for a ton of stuff like risk analysis, fraud detection, regulatory reporting.
It makes sense though, right? Financial data is like the ultimate puzzle.
Oh, incredibly complex and sensitive. Having a unified and secure way to manage it is mission critical.
It's like data fabric is giving them superpowers to see the bigger picture.
Well, in a way, yeah, they can spot those fraudulent transactions in real time, make sure they're complying with GDPR and other regulations.
Amazing. Now, the article also talks about data quality expert Malcolm Chisholm. He seems pretty passionate about integrating data quality right into the data fabric architecture itself.
Well, think of it this way. If you're building a house, you wouldn't build it on a foundation full of cracks.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
A recipe for disaster.
Exactly. Same goes for data. If the data going into your data fabric is bad, everything built on top of it is going to be shapy.
So it's not just about connecting the data, but making sure it's good data to begin with.
Exactly. You could end up making a huge business decision based on faulty data.
Talk about a nightmare scenario. So we've covered some of the benefits of data fabric. But are there any downsides or potential pitfalls? The article mentioned a few challenges.
It's not all sunshine and roses, that's for sure. Data fabric is powerful, but it's not a magic wand.
Right. What kind of challenges are we talking about?
Well, one of the big ones is managing errors and duplicate data, if those slip into your system.
Yikes. It sounds like that could snowball quickly.
It can. They can really corrupt your insights. You've got to be really careful about data quality.
So having a deep understanding of your data is essential before even thinking about data fabric.
Absolutely. You need a solid plan to ensure quality and consistency. Otherwise, it's like building a house of cards.
It all comes crashing down. Now, is data fabric the only game in town? I know the article briefly mentioned something called data mesh as an alternative. What's the difference?
That's a good question. Imagine data fabric as a centralized library. Everything's in one place.
Yeah.
Data mesh, on the other hand, is like a network of smaller, more specialized libraries.
Interesting. So which approach is better? Is one inherently superior?
Not really. It really depends on the organization and their needs.
Okay, so what are some of the factors to consider when choosing between them?
Well, with Data Fabric, you get tighter control and a unified view, which can be great for organizations with strict compliance requirements.
Makes sense. And for data mesh.
It's more adaptable, more scalable, especially for organizations dealing with massive amounts of data and constant innovation.
But I imagine that comes with its own set of challenges.
Oh, for sure. You
Yeah.
need a high level of coordination and collaboration across different teams and domains.
Sounds like choosing between the two could be a tough decision.
It definitely can be. You have to weigh the trade-offs. Do you prioritize control and consistency or agility and scalability?
What are your organization's data management capabilities? It's a lot to consider.
It is. But the article did mention this interesting trend.
Oh, what's that?
Hybrid approaches, combining elements of both data fabric and data mesh.
So it's not necessarily an either-or situation.
Not at all. It's about finding the right balance for your organization's specific needs.
Finding that sweet spot between speed, agility, and control.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a fascinating overview of data fabric. I'm starting to see how it could be a game changer for so many organizations.
It's definitely a powerful tool with a lot of potential.
Yeah.
But
There's always a but.
it's important to go into it with a clear understanding of the challenges and the commitment it takes to do it right.
Very true. Well, before we dive deeper, is there anything else in the article that stood out to you? Anything our listeners should keep in mind as we continue this deep dive?
You know, one thing that really resonated with me was the emphasis on data governance.
Oh, absolutely.
It's easy to get caught up in the technical aspects, but data governance is crucial, especially with Data Fabric, where you're centralizing access to so much information.
It's like building this amazing highway system, but then forgetting about traffic laws.
Exactly. Chaos. You need rules of the road to ensure that the data is being used responsibly, ethically, and in compliance with regulations.
Data governance is the foundation for building trust with your data.
Well said. It's about making sure that data is used for good and not for harm.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork, but there's still so much more to explore.
Oh yeah, we've just scratched the surface.
What are your thoughts on the future of data fabric? The article touched on AI and machine learning. Where do you see things heading?
That's where things get really interesting. We're just at the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's possible with Data Fabric, especially when you factor in AI and machine learning.
It's like data fabric is giving AI a turbo boost.
In a way, it is.
So where do you see the biggest impact happening? What trends are you keeping an eye on?
Well, one area that has me really excited is the integration of real-time data streams. Think about being able to analyze data as it's generated.
Well, that's next level stuff.
It is. Organizations could respond to events and make decisions with incredible speed and accuracy.
Can you give us a concrete example of how this might play out in the real world?
Sure, imagine a financial institution using Data Fabric to detect fraudulent transactions the moment they occur.
No more waiting for things to get flagged after the damage is done.
Exactly. The system could stop the transaction in its tracks. Or think about a retailer personalizing customer experiences on the fly based on their browsing history.
It's like having a crystal ball to see the future.
Huh, I like that. And as Data Fabric technology gets more sophisticated, I think we'll see even more mind-blowing applications.
I can only imagine. It sounds like data fabric could fundamentally change the way businesses operate.
I think you're right. It's a really exciting time to be in the world of data.
This has been an incredible deep dive into data fabric so far.
I agree. We've covered a lot of ground, from the challenges to the incredible potential.
Before we move on, though, any final thoughts or advice for our listeners who might be considering data fabric for their organizations?
Well, I think the most important thing is to stay curious. The world of data is constantly evolving, and there's always something new to learn.
Great advice. And to our listeners, thanks for sticking with us on this deep dive. We've got much more to explore.
Stay tuned. It's not just finance and retail that could benefit from this real-time analysis.
Oh, you're right. What other industries come to mind?
Well, healthcare, for one. Think about it.
Okay, yeah. Healthcare is dealing with tons of data.
Imagine a patient's vital signs being constantly monitored, and that data feeding into a data fabric system.
Okay, so the system is getting real-time updates on the patient's condition.
Right. And it could analyze that data, alerting doctors to potential problems before they even become serious.
That's incredible, like a constant virtual guardian.
Exactly. And it goes beyond monitoring. Think about drug discovery and development. Researchers could use Data Fabric to analyze huge data sets to find promising new treatments.
Wow. It sounds like the potential is enormous, especially as AI and machine learning keep advancing. But it makes you wonder about the ethical side of things, too.
Oh, absolutely. That's a really important point and something we need to consider carefully.
The article didn't really dive into that, but as we start relying more on these AI systems powered by data fabric,
We have to be very aware of potential biases. We need to make sure these systems are being used ethically and responsibly.
so it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the implementation and oversight.
Exactly. We need clear guidelines and regulations to make sure data fabric is being used for good, to protect things like patient privacy in healthcare, for example.
And ensure fairness in decision-making algorithms. We've seen how those can go wrong.
Yeah, there are definitely some cautionary tales out there. We need to learn from those mistakes.
It sounds like we need a whole new set of ethical frameworks to deal with these technologies.
I think so, yeah. We have to start thinking about these issues now before it's too late. The future of data fabric and the future of AI in general depend on it.
That's a pretty sobering thought.
It is, but it's the reality we're facing. We have to make sure these powerful tools are used to help people, not hurt them.
Well said. Okay, so we've touched on some of the ethical implications. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the technical side of things.
Mm.
What are some of the challenges in actually building and managing a data fabric, especially with all this talk about AI and real-time data?
Yeah, the technical hurdles are definitely there. Scalability is a big one.
Okay, so as the data sets get bigger and more complex,
You need data fabric architectures that can handle it. Think of it like designing a highway system that can manage a constant flow of traffic without causing gridlock.
right? So it's not just about building bigger pipes.
Nope. You have to design a system that can intelligently route and manage that flow of data. And then there's the challenge of data integration. Data fabric needs to be able to connect and integrate data from all sorts of sources.
Which probably come in all kinds of different formats, right?
Oh, yeah, each with its own quirks and structure. It's
Uh-huh.
like trying to put together a giant jigsaw puzzle where the pieces are from different sets.
That sounds messy.
It can be, especially when you add real-time data streams coming in from every direction. You need sophisticated algorithms and data governance policies to make sure the data is clean and consistent.
It's not just about connecting the dots, it's making sure they're the right dots.
Exactly. And of course, we can't forget about data security. With all this sensitive information flowing through the data fabric, security is absolutely paramount.
Yes, security is always a top concern.
Hmm?
What are some of the ways data fabric can help with that?
You need things like robust encryption, access controls, and anomaly detection systems. Think of it like building a fortress around your data with multiple layers of defense.
I like that. Multiple lines of defense to keep that data safe.
Right. And let's not forget the human element. We need people who can design, build, and manage these complex systems. Skilled data scientists, engineers, architects.
So it's not just about the tech itself, but the people behind it.
Exactly. Technology is only as good as the people using it.
Building and managing a data fabric sounds like a massive undertaking.
It is. But the payoff can be huge. Data fabric has the potential to change how we work, how we make decisions, and even how we interact with the world around us.
That's a pretty exciting thought.
It is. It's an exciting time to be working in the data field, that's for sure.
Speaking of exciting, any thoughts on where data fabric goes from here? Any trends you're keeping an eye on?
Well, one trend I find particularly interesting is the rise of self-service data fabric platforms.
Self-service. So like a DIY data fabric kit.
Huh. Not quite. But the idea is to empower business users to access and analyze data without needing to rely on IT specialists.
Interesting. So instead of having to jump through hoops to get data from IT.
Anyone in the organization could potentially access it and analyze it on their own.
Wow, that's a game changer.
It could be. Of course, there are still challenges. You have to make sure things are secure, that the data governance policies are being followed. But the potential benefits are huge.
Can you give us an example of how a self-service platform might work in practice?
Sure, imagine a marketing manager who wants to analyze the effectiveness of a recent campaign. With a self-service platform, they could access the data fabric, create dashboards, and generate insights without having to write any code or depend on IT.
So they're empowered to answer their own questions, make their own data-driven decisions.
Exactly. It's about making data accessible to everyone, not just the tech wizards. And that kind of data literacy is becoming more and more important.
I can definitely see that. It's about making everyone a data expert, in a way.
In a way, yes.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, anything else you want to highlight about the future of data fabric? Any predictions for our listeners?
Well, one area that I think will be really important is the integration of data fabric with other emerging technologies. Blockchain, for example.
Oh, blockchain. That's a whole other deep dive we could do.
Ha! It is. But think about it. Blockchain could really enhance data security and transparency within the data fabric. And then there's the Internet of Things, all those devices out there generating tons of data.
Right, the Internet of Things. Everything's getting connected these days.
Exactly. IoT devices could feed a constant stream of real-time data into the data fabric. Imagine a smart city with sensors tracking things like traffic flow, air quality, energy consumption.
Okay, so the data fabric is getting all this information about the city in real time. What happens then?
It could provide insights that help improve urban planning and resource management. We could make cities run more efficiently and sustainably.
Wow, that's a pretty amazing vision of the future. So it's not just about companies using data fabric. It could impact entire cities, maybe even countries?
I think so, yeah. It's bigger than just individual organizations. We're just at the beginning of this journey, and I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Me too. This has been a really eye-opening conversation. Thanks for sharing your insights with us.
It's been my pleasure. Always happy to talk about the potential of data fabric.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with the final part of our exploration of data fabric. We'll be getting into some practical considerations for implementation and looking at some real-world case studies. All right, so we've talked about the potential, the ethical considerations, the future of data fabric, but let's get down to brass tacks. How do you actually implement it? What are the steps involved?
Yeah, good question. It's not as simple as just, installing a piece of software. There's a lot more to it. It's a journey. You need to have a plan.
So where do you even begin?
Well, the first step is understanding your data landscape. Where is all your data living right now? What formats is it in? Who needs to be able to access it?
So it's like taking inventory of all your data assets before you start building anything.
Exactly. You need to know what you're working with. Then you need to define your business objectives. What are you hoping to achieve with Data Fabric?
Yeah, that makes sense. Is it about improving operational efficiency, creating amazing customer experiences, gaining a competitive edge?
It could be any of those things, or all of them. You have to have a clear vision of what success looks like. Then you can start designing your Data Fabric architecture.
Okay, so that's where you start choosing the right tools and technologies.
Right. And there are a lot of options out there. Cloud-based solutions, on-premises solutions, hybrid approaches.
How do you know which one is right for you?
It depends on a lot of factors. How much data do you have? How complex is it? What are your security requirements?
It's like choosing the right building materials for your data house.
I like that analogy. And then there's the data integration piece.
Right, that's where you actually connect all the data sources to the data fabric.
Exactly. You want to make sure they can all talk to each other and share information seamlessly.
That sounds like it could be the most challenging part of the whole process.
It can be, especially if you're dealing with legacy systems and all those data silos we talked about earlier. But there are tools and techniques to help streamline the process.
Okay, so you've got your architecture, you've integrated your data. What's next?
Data governance. We've talked about this before, but I can't emphasize enough how important it is.
Right, it's not just about the technology, it's about how you manage and use it responsibly.
Exactly. You need clear policies and procedures. Who has access to what data? What are the quality standards? Are we using this data ethically?
There are a lot of moving parts. Any tips for making this whole process a little less overwhelming?
Well, there are frameworks and best practices that can help. And many vendors offer professional services to guide you through the implementation. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
So you can get some expert help along the way.
Exactly. And never underestimate the human element. You need to train your team on how to use and manage the data fabric.
Right, invest in your people as much as you invest in the technology.
Couldn't agree more.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, but I know we've only scratched the surface of what it takes to actually implement data fabric. Any key takeaways for our listeners who might be thinking about embarking on this journey?
Sure. First, understand your goals and your data landscape. Know where you're starting from and where you want to go. Second, choose the right architecture and tools that fit your specific needs. Third, data governance, data governance, data governance. Make it a priority from day one. And fourth, invest in your people. Train them, support them, empower them to use data fabric effectively.
Those are some great points. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear about some companies that are doing this well. Any inspiring success stories out there?
Oh, there are tons. I remember reading about this large retail company. They used data fabric to personalize their customer experiences.
Okay, so how do they do that?
They integrated all sorts of data. purchase history, browsing behavior, social media activity, you name it. And they use that data to create really targeted recommendations and offers.
So it wasn't just generic marketing blasts anymore.
Nope, it was all tailored to the individual customer. And it worked. They saw a huge jump in customer engagement and sales.
That's amazing. Data Fabric helping to create those personalized experiences everyone's talking about. Any other cool examples?
Oh, yeah, there was this financial institution that used Data Fabric to beef up their fraud detection.
A hot topic these days.
It is, but they were able to analyze real-time transaction data, and they were able to catch fraudulent activity much faster and more accurately.
Sounds like it saved them a lot of money.
Millions, potentially.
Yeah.
It's a great example of how Data Fabric can have a real impact on the bottom line.
These are some really impressive examples. Makes me think Data Fabric is going to become even more important as we move forward.
Oh, I have no doubt about that. We're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
Well, this has been an incredible journey. I feel like we've gone from 0 to 60 with Data Fabric.
We've covered a lot, from the basics to the big picture and everything in between.
Before we sign off, any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
Stay curious, my friend. The world of data is constantly changing, and there's always something new to learn. Embrace the challenge and never stop exploring.
Well said. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Data Fabric. We hope you found it insightful, maybe even a little bit inspiring. It's a complex topic, but one that has the potential to revolutionize the way we work and live. So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep that data flowing.